Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of my Clipper faithful. Thank you so much for being here today on Wednesday. I believe today's June 28th for our discussion with Raleon and our special guest, Nathan. I'm going to give him a moment to just say hello so he's not sitting there awkwardly, but we're going to do a little bit of admin and housekeeping announcements, and we're going to get right into our discussion. So Nathan from Raleon, thanks so much for being here. Why don't you say hi to the audience?
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Ben. I appreciate it. And yeah, thanks everybody for having me, and super excited, being both a part of the Clipper community, but also getting a chance to chat with everyone and kind of share some exciting stuff. So thanks.
My pleasure. It's really nice to have you. So before we get into talking about Raleon, and by the way, they are building the Web3 marketing platform for growth and product teams. It helps product designers understand and engage their users. And in my opinion, they're developing the best native, seamless way to have fun user journeys. And we're actually going to go through a product walkthrough, among other things, with them today. But before we do that, let's talk about what's going on in Clipper writ large. So as we see 167 people audience, it's so nice to have you here. I imagine you all are here because we are engaged in Adventure When month. And what you can see on my screen, so Nathan is sharing his screen, but for those of you who want to see what I'm sharing, you'll have to check this out on YouTube, but I will also post the link in main deck. This is a kind of calendar of events of what's happening over the next month or so before we launch our adventure. So our next adventure is the big one. It is currently slated to launch probably the middle of August, and for the next month we're going through a lot of fun events. This is the first week of of Adventure When month, and it's a whole host of AMAs. You saw Off-Chain Labs yesterday. You have Raleon today. We have our Clipper State of the Union tomorrow. Make sure to be there. Next week, we have a design competition with winners and a Twitter design contest rewarding people with Matic. We have Trivia Week the week after that, and then we have a fun week of riddles. And it all leads to the adventure launch. We had 30,000 people sign up. Hope to have even more this time around. And it's what everyone wants, basically, so make sure to show up. Today, when Nathan talks, we hope to have a lot of people participating. I invite our guests to ask questions in the hashtag AMA channel. If we use your question, and it's because, as everyone knows, the Clipper values are knowledge, camaraderie, and playfulness. So if your questions contribute to knowledge, we will make sure to reward that. So you'll collect your wallet afterwards and send you guys a reward. So be thinking of your questions, put them in hashtag AMA. And also, if you stick around to the end after Nathan says his goodbyes, I'll make sure to do some giveaways. So do stick around. The last thing we'll talk about before we jump into it is there are some active... So Nathan's going to help us and Raleon's going to help us make these seamless user journeys and voyages, but right now we do have kind of beta phases of it. So there's a beginner's voyage that's live in the Discord channel, the sub channel voyages. There's also the values and voting voyage. So you can earn some really cool NFTs and rewards there. And also, if you complete the values voting voyage, you can gain access to the Clipper voting channel, which is our beta stage for governance. You can actually hold votes. So we voted, well, we don't have to go into all, there's a list of all the previous governance votes, and there will be more, and probably one coming this week. And the last thing is we have a live community poll, which closes tomorrow. That's in hashtag community poll. I'll put that link here. We're going to go over those results on our Clipper State of the Union tomorrow, so it would be wonderful you could fill it out so we can get our active, engaged audience involved. So I did a lot of talking about Clipper, but now I would love to talk about Raleon. So I'm going to go back to sharing Nathan's screen. And Nathan, why don't you come out and tell us a little bit about who you are, about who Raleon is, and your journey to Web3.
Yeah, absolutely. See, I mean, I would just say again, appreciate. I can see the numbers, climbing here, but appreciate everybody jumping in. I guess as far as me and my background, I've been really in the crypto Web3 space. Depending on, I feel like it depends on the audience which one you end up calling it, but the decentralized space, if you will, for a number of years now. Probably I'd say 3 or 4 years in total. Really starting in 2018. which I guess is technically more than 3 or 4 years. Time goes by fast.
Yeah,
But
it's 5 years now. Unbelievable. Yeah.
So my background is actually in fintech. So I'm a sort of startup junkie by nature, and co-founded a company called Encino, which you can see sort of our IPO box there. We took it public in 2020, and at about a $7 billion valuation. And really, at my time there, I oversaw product engineering, for a good bit of time. And as you might imagine, being involved in the fintech space, I really started tracking blockchain pretty early on. And one of the things that I was watching for a while was the DeFi space as a whole, and and not just, I'd say, decentralized exchange activity, but a lot of the different stuff like Aave and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like I'd say that sort of the longer my tenure ran at Encino, it was really exciting just to watch like sort of the continued evolution and growth of of crypto, really of Ethereum, right? And which I'd say was sort of like a killer moment for to me, the blockchain space as a whole. So, really, beginning of last year, I ended up leaving Encino, and myself and my co-founder, we talked with a number of different projects in this space as it was continuing to grow. Really to kind of figure out like what's the right area to focus, because I'd say I knew I wanted to be involved in the space, just because it's such. It's an awesome area. The community's amazing, as obviously as all of you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, what we heard oftentimes from folks was just this challenge, right? Because everything's on chain of really, how do we help people understand who their users are without sort of removing the anonymity, if you will, but also how do we help them engage and sort of take action with those users, right? So like what sort of privacy preserving ways, that we can help folks kind of see what's working and what's not working, and then be able to do really fun, sort of engaging things with them, both to bring new folks in, like adventures, as well as kind of keep them engaged and keep them having fun and loyal and that sort of thing. So that's really what Raleon was born out of, close to the beginning. I'd say Q2 really of last year.
That's fascinating. So I want to get deeper into Raleon, but you bringing up Encino, and you left, you said in 2020, but you founded that company or co-founded that company. Is that right? So
correct. Yeah, and actually I left beginning of last year.
It's just fascinating stuff. So you really are a startup junkie. You said, all right, I've created this. I have a $7 billion valuation. Let's do it over again. What's the state of Encino right now? Did you leave on good terms? Like, let's dig up the gossip and the tea here. How big is Encino versus Raleon? Like, how much did you scale? Tell me, give me that journey, that transition.
Yeah. So I left on great terms. I still know Pierre, the CEO. He's a good friend. Well, I know the CRO there and everything. So love everybody there, and still lots of close friends. We started in beginning of 2012 with about 5 people when we started Encino. When I left, it may be, I don't know if it's the same number now, but when I left beginning of last year, it was 1,600 people. So,
unbelievable! That's amazing growth.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun. It was tiring for most of it, but still a lot of fun. And I guess for perspective, really on 6 people today. So going from 1,600 people to 6, and actually we started really at 2. So myself and Adam, who's our CTO and co-founder, he's brilliant. And we've kind of grown up to 6. And I'd say we're sort of I like small teams, and we're kind of intentionally running lean. But yeah, right. It's been it's definitely an adjustment because different sort of stages require different things, but still a whole ton of fun.
When did it stop feeling like a startup and start feeling, did it ever feel like a corporate bog at some point? 1,600 is a lot of people to manage. They say you can't even really remember more than 150 people. Did you know all your employees?
So I was doing pretty well until about like 300 to 400.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, and it's one of those things too of like, it's like the velocity of hire tends to be the biggest impact, right? Because, like when you're when you've been there from the beginning, like you have this sort of natural benefit of like you just like everybody who's new, like it's easy to sort of remember because like I kind of have in a way less to remember than everybody else. Because everybody like if you're brand new to a company, right, you have to remember everybody.
10 people, whereas you only do +1. Yeah,
that's like longevity, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I think it is possible if you look at companies like AWS and others to preserve, the startup culture well. One of the things that I'm really proud of about Encino is we built an amazing company with an amazing culture, right? Culture, and it sounds like Clipper, as you were even mentioning the values, reminds me of, of what we did there, what we're doing at Raleon, of just, making sure like the community and the people were first. First and foremost. So, as we scale the company, do things, do the processes have to change? Yes, but I think there's still a lot of aspects, while I was even there, that culturally were very, faster and iterative and sort of startup, focused. So I
Yeah.
think, different parts of the organization have to evolve in different ways, but that doesn't mean that you have to lose that necessarily.
Yeah, and it's really nice to hear you talk about sort of the user being the North Star, and we feel very similarly. And I wonder if that's why we've gelled so well in our private meetings about what the product's moving forward. So with that, why don't we move into to kind of what you're doing with Raleon these days, and give us a little deeper intro to Raleon, and then we can go into a product walkthrough about kind of what you're offering Clipper and other like stage companies. Well, Clipper's not a company, pardon me, but projects,
Yeah.
I should say. Dexes.
Yeah, project, DAO, community,
Yeah.
whatever yeah, I mean, so at Rayleon, the simple way that we sort of describe what we're doing is a Web3 marketing automation platform. So the idea that we sort of drive behind that is, and I alluded to this at the beginning a little bit, but it's this idea of if we can help really projects, NFT brands, things like that, or even sort of Web 2.5 companies that come into the space, like say a Nike or Adidas. We really want to help them, help everybody sort of bridge this gap around the life cycle of a user. So, so to your point, Ben, I mean, so that's like the user is the North Star. So, I mean, like one of our core values is speed in everything. And part of how we sort of embody that is this sort of maniacal user focus where, as opposed to spending tons of time like doing deep analysis on like, oh, well, like, should the button go here or here? Like, we'd rather honestly release it, to our users, and let it go out to the community, listen to that feedback and make those changes very, very rapidly. So, for us, that's sort of where if we zoom out, we think about it as, Rayleon's goal is to really help with the life cycle of, of users, right, of the community, from helping understand sort of who the community members are, which one, not sort of are actually, but like which ones are engaged, what they're engaged doing, what they seem to like, what they may not seem to like from this sort of data standpoint. But then actually being able to provide these really fun and engaging experiences. So, our view for a while has been, while we have this sort of data platform under the hood that actually combines on-chain blockchain data with off-chain data to create this kind of user graph, what our view for a long time has been, that data is awesome, like insights are great, but if you can't take action on them, then they're not really that helpful, right? So, I like to say, like, data is great, but actions are better. Which is sort of why we have that kind of automation platform focus.
And that maps to the speed and everything. So my question here, it's almost like a question that's so simple that it hasn't, I wonder if you've even put it into words, but when you talk about kind of, well, the user being your North Star, and why is that important? Can you explain that? I mean, at the simplest level?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we talk about a user being the North Star, our view, right, is like at the end of the day, those are the people that are using, the application every single day. And honestly, like, and we even think about that too, is, how can we even treat ourselves as a user as much as possible, right? So like with embedded quests that we're rolling out that, that kind of everybody in the Clipper community actually gets to get a big sneak peek around. We're actually going to put that onto our own site, the same way that we use our own product to drive our own analytics and things like that. So
it's like the Rogaine, he's the president and a member. Too many young people in the audience probably to know what that means, but to remove the humor from the situation, Rogaine is a hair loss product to help you not lose your hair, and there's a famous commercial that I'm not only the president of Rogaine, but I'm also a member myself. So you guys are using your product. That's kind of how you know. That's fun.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. And and I think being user first also, and I saw this at my past company and companies prior. It's it makes sure that we're market led, right? That we're in a way we're community led, and as a result are focused on the right things, right? So we spend less time as a result looking at all the other things that are going on in market and what competitors might be doing and so on. Because at the end of the day, like if we're making our community happy, if we're making our customers like Clipper and others happy, that's what's important to us, right? And that kind of keeps us focused on the right things and on adding value, which is frankly where actually this whole embedded quest feature even came from. Is it was from customers saying, giving us feedback on different things and being like, man, it would be awesome if you guys could help us, do this. And we're like, well, great, we can do that.
Right. So you hinted at this a little bit when you were just talking about why Raleon was created, but there's a long-winded way. Is Raleon Web3? Is it only Web3? And if so, why? And what's the difference between Web 2 and Web 3 and kind of what your product does?
Yeah, I mean, so I'd say our company is Web3 focused. So we've started off focusing really on like on Web3 native, native projects, brands, DAOs, things like that. But the way that we think about sort of what we built out is anything that's like wallet enabled, is somebody that can ultimately be sort of a customer of ours. So I'd say like as a result of that, right, there is a very strong Web3 bend, to what we're doing, just because if you don't have a wallet, then like there's not as much value in Raytheon today. I think with that, part of what we also see our opportunity being is being able to actually help kind of be a bridge from Web 2 into Web 3, right? So with something like an embedded Quest, for example, down the line, being able to help people, get wallets very quickly, right? So I think we see it both as an opportunity to grow the space by helping projects succeed in terms of like understanding and growth and retention and loyalty, but also by helping grow the space. Or I should say, also helping grow the space by actually helping projects attract new users that might not have sort of been is able to kind of jump into the spaces before. So we kind of see our role in kind of a dual way, and embedded Quest begins to kind of be that next step of, how do we bring more folks in? Again, still sort of wallet enabled, so still acting on the blockchain in some way, but our perspective is over time. I always liken it to Netflix, right? Where it's like, to all of us who are sort of early, we know kind of we're interacting with blockchain, but
Yeah.
as we think about Netflix, like you want to binge the latest show, and you don't really care whether or not it came from AWS or Google Cloud or Azure, like you just want to watch the show. So that's sort of some of what we're kind of trying to help enable.
Yeah, bring about mass adoption. So I'm happy to say, while you were speaking, we reached max capacity for our stage while we're sharing the screen. I know that means that more than 330 people want to come to this, but they're let out because we're using the feature of sharing a screen. So why don't we use the screen? You talked about embedded Quest. Can you give our Clipper audience a little brief sneak peek about what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, man. I feel like this is actually very apropos. So I mean, I'd say thanks to to Clipper and the community, since as I was saying before, part of this feature came out of customers of Raleon, like in the Raleon community, like Clipper and others, basically saying, hey, look, we'd love to be able to provide like a more fun, engaging experience, to our community. Obviously, I assume many, if not all, have been involved in like one of the Clipper adventures, which are just awesome. So really, we spend a lot of time talking with the community, talking with even members in the Clipper community to kind of craft what we now call like embedded quests. And I'll say this too. So we're launching on July 5th. We'll be at ETH Barcelona. So if anybody's there, feel free to to come in and see us. You actually see this in person and get to play with it. We'll also be at ECC if anybody's going to be there, and we'll have a special event in collaboration with another project there. But the idea of an embedded quest, maybe to kind of start to jump in, you kind of see it on the screen, is the concept really of like an adventure, right? So of being able to be able to easily kind of craft these adventures, whether they're super big in an idea, or whether it's a simpler sort of and I forget, like a voyage, I think is what you called it, Ben, like a simpler kind of voyage, just to get people in and engaged. And like in our view really is like, if we look at like one of the things that's great and native to Web3, which quests are, how do we actually kind of take this really fun idea, but even kind of evolve it, so taking some Web 2 ideas, some kind of Web 2 concepts, and turn it into this really cool, engaging experience. And I'd say anybody who's experienced the adventure, has kind of experienced that in some way already. But let me jump over here just to kind of even show it. So actually, I'll minimize this here. So this is our fake DEX. So Cryptic does not exist. It's just sort of a demo, DEX example. So don't go to, this is all locked anyway. You can't actually, swap or trade here. But you get the beginning of what the kind of feel is, right? So one of the things that we heard oftentimes from folks, right, is if you're trying to do a quest, and platforms like Galaxy, for the record, are amazing. We're huge fans of them. So they're great at sort of building this very, very top of funnel awareness. But what happens, right, is like once you actually get to a DEX, sometimes there's onboarding questions, and sometimes there's just things, there's things like joining the community that's really important for hopefully most DEXs or DeFi projects or what have you. And then there's also things like retention. There's lots of stuff, right, that you want to be able to, in this more Web3 native way, that you want to enable for a project. And that's really where the Web3 quest came in, or the idea of an embedded quest idea came in. Because in talking with users, that were actually participating in quests and projects, a lot of things that we heard were stuff like, oh, well, I have to kind of bounce between all these different sites, right? And as a result, it's really confusing. And I'm like, I don't know which thing I did or I didn't do. And then from like a project or brand standpoint, Ben, you've crafted these amazing voyages and stories and stuff. And like
It's
the ability
frustrating
really,
to design it that way. I mean, you don't want to you don't want to ping pong ball people all around the web. You want them to stay in one place, click, it says you did it, give them a reward. I need it, really.
Right. And as a user, I mean, I've done a bunch of quests, and the most annoying thing, right, is I'm like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? And I jump to this other thing, and it's not this nicely sort of integrated, and even like, we call like omni-channel experience, right? So this is designed whether it's, whether you're in Discord, whether you're on mobile, whether you're on desktop, it's this sort of seamless experience. So that way it's tailored to the community as opposed to like trying to make people jump through hoops and all that sort of stuff. So you can kind of see down here, I'll pop this up, and again, I'll say sort of disclaimer, this is, this is still sort of beta state as we're refining stuff. See a little bit of even the ETH Barcelona things in here. But you can see it's actually designed to be very conversational. So I'm actually going to jump to our quest piece here. I'm going to actually kick off. So this is, as it starts going through here, this is actually the Clipper voyage. So what we actually did is we used ChatGPT, Ben, to actually take the first sort of starting voyage that you guys had and translate it into this sort of fun interactive narrative that's actually embedded within the questing system itself.
So like the voyage as it stands right now is like, it's a, look, I like it. It's a good wall of text. It's a story, but this looks more like an actual conversation.
Yep, correct. Yeah, so it's designed to be very conversational. It's designed to be fun. Like and I'd say it can be sort of as long and as short as you want. We have some folks that that have taken like the quizzes that people have to complete and turned it into this sort of fun adventure that gets you experience and NFTs and stuff. And we have others that have it really short, right? Where it's like, hey, welcome, here's the things that you need to complete. So it's really kind of tailorable based on what folks want. But the fun thing too is like it doesn't require any code to get this done. We'll show some of that. But as you can see, so cool, like, after you complete this voyage, you get stuff. Have you ever heard of Clipper ships, right? And you can see, you're like, no, like, what are they? And you can see in this case, I've connected my wallet. I happen to be part of the Jump community, some free advertising for them. But, we've got sort of interaction here, right? So you get this sense of like, okay, cool, we get this dialogue. It's this kind of fun, engaging thing. There's storytelling that's involved. It's not this kind of just bland, like, I want, do X action to get X reward. I'll say, great, it sounds amazing. How do I become one? And so now you can even see some of the fun aspects here too. So because of how the system works, you can keep it really streamlined, or you can actually turn it into this sort of broader, almost choose your own adventure. So in this case, I could be like, cool, I want to head down to the docks, or maybe I want to talk to a random sailor that happens to be there that you're telling me that's there. In this case, I'm just going to say, let's head down to the docks. And then you can see we've actually pulled in some of the images that's from the onboarding there just to liven the experience. The captain actually begins speaking, so you can kind of get the sense of like, cool, what is Captain Mark? I don't know if Mark's the captain, but
he's actually a humble servant. We have Captain Clipper. We have spirit captains. There's a whole lore to the Clipper world.
Got it. So you kind of get the idea, right? So you can work through it, and then as a result, the same things that you're used to, right, as a Web3 user can be present. So you can gain XP, you can get NFTs. There are still things that you can do, like join Discord to be rewarded for. But the idea, right, is that suddenly like actually engaging with the brand, engaging with the experience becomes less transactional, which is really our goal, right, and more community building oriented, more relational. And something that's a lot more sort of on brand and engaging and fun, really for the end user, which is again, like in our view, most important, and then for the for projects as well.
So say I'm this wallet here, the ending in DD62, and I do this quest, then I go over to Cryptic and I do the fake Cryptic Dex's quest. And so now I have a bunch of actions under my wallet. Is there like a single source of truth or a profile page to kind of show you? And can you review your past actions, or is it all in that little chat box, or what's the plan? I also know there's a beta product, so if I'm asking you like stuff that's not there yet, apologies.
Yeah, I mean, so we're so everything has a built-in leaderboard. I don't know what will happen if I click on this one, so I won't for now.
Sounds good.
But like, if I click on that for this one, you'll actually see kind of where you are in the leaderboard based on the actions that you've done and the points that you've earned.
It's specific to that community.
Correct, specific to this community. Yep.
So cool.
What's neat, and honestly, we'll kind of see. So to your point, we've talked about having like a centralized kind of profile where you can see all the things that you've done, because one of the things that's actually really awesome about what Web3 enables with this sort of experience that's very unique is, to your point, like I can actually bring myself to all these different communities, right? So if I go to Clipper and and this is in place, then I can get a cool Clipper experience. If I go to Aave, for instance, and it happens to be there, like I can actually bring my, my history with me, because like all of this is actually sovereign to me. So there, there's aspects of what the project knows, but but if more and more projects are using it, there is a lot of cool stuff because of what's on chain that we could actually broaden into into a profile that lets for even cooler things happen. I'd say we haven't started there, just because honestly it's more a matter of, frankly, again, seeing like, how much do end users, how much do people in the Clipper community or Aave or others like want that to follow them versus not. But it's certainly there and it's possible.
That's really, really cool. Okay, so I see that we're like nearly at time. So I do want to give the audience a chance to ask some questions. What else do you want to show us before I kind of turn to the audience and then do some wrap up stuff?
No, man, I'd say let's turn to the audience. I mean, I'd love, there's certainly more to show, but I'd much rather hear whatever questions and make sure we have time for it.
Yeah, great, because I do want to be, I know you're a busy man with your new startup of 6 people. I'm sure you got lots of stuff to do. So I invite you, if you have questions, head over to #AMA. I'm going to head there right now, and I see a question from Captain Rusty, and he asks, what do you find is the most common mistake or misconception Web3 brands make when it comes to marketing or catering to their audience? This is an answer I want to know this is a question I want to know the answer to.
So what do they find the most? I think, so I'd say there's a few different things with this. When it comes to marketing or catering to their audience, I'd say there's probably 2 things that I would say. I mean, one is, they tend to, and this probably sounds strange, but it's like they tend to go overboard in a lot of cases, right? So I think there's this aspect where it's like, oh, well, in order for this to, in order to like, get into this space, or cater to them, like we have to go big and do an NFT, like, and all this other sort of stuff, right? Yeah. And I'd say almost if you look back, like, not so much this year because it's been sort of an odd and macroeconomic year, but, prior, it's almost like they lean too heavy on like the early NFT playbook versus, kind of like we've been saying, right? Versus starting off and saying, like, who are the people that, like, who's the audience that we want to attract? Like, what do they care about? What's important to them? And then actually starting off with value, right? And kind of saying, hey, look, out of the gate, like, here's something we think is going to be really awesome and really, really, like in solving a particular problem. And like, I'd say a lot of folks, I think, get more excited about like, oh, we've got this NFT than saying, well, here's this really, this really important problem that we're solving for you. And then letting the community almost drive, like, what are the things that are exciting to them, right? Because like, we were talking with a customer earlier, for instance, and based on their community, like quests aren't interesting to them, right? And they've asked their community, and that's what their community said. And I think that's the right approach, is like really saying who is the audience and what are the things that they really care about, versus like, well, here's the playbook, right? We're going to do a token, we're going to do an NFT, and it's like not everybody weights those equally.
Yeah. Well, it's really nice to hear you say that, and it's kind of like I want to pat Clipper on the back, but it's also a little bit easy for us because we're guided by the mission, which is bringing free and fair markets to all, and the North Star for Clipper is kind of the everyday trader. So with our capped pools and the best prices, it's a specifically designed decentralized exchange for traders that make trades less than $50,000 or less. So we kind of know who our audience is. They're the everyday trader, and we've really put an effort into building the community. So it looks like we're at time. So why don't I give you a moment to give final words? If you have links that you want me to share with the audience, if they want to give you feedback or just to check out Raleon, let me know and I'll post those in main deck. I also want you to say your goodbyes, and then after you step down from stage, audience, stick around. We'll do a couple giveaways and one final round of housekeeping announcements. Then we'll say goodbye and have a great day. All right, Raleon, Nathan, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think I would just say, thanks again, everybody, for the time. If there's questions, let me know. If you're interested in if you're a part of Adapt yourself or a DAO or that sort of thing, and you're interested in trying out our new embedded quest capability that's launching next week, feel free to reach out. We've got a big list starting there, so we'll be getting lots of folks in. We're kicking it off free, honestly, just so we can get great feedback, build a good community around this particular feature. And then I'd say too, if you want to learn more, our site's Raleon.io, and you can also follow me on Twitter, at Nathan Snell. I kept it pretty simple. But yeah, it's you can kind of follow there. There's a lot of stuff that we've got going on, and look us up if you're at ETH Barcelona or ECC. Would love to just hang out and chat, and we've got some giveaways going on too. So if you look us up, you've got a good chance of getting something.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And to my community, if you have feedback for Nathan, let him know, because you should know that Clipper's head of community is very invested in Raleon's product. So it's probably coming here, as soon as we can get it here. So if you want it to look a certain way, now's the chance to get on the ground floor. So thank you to Nathan. Thank you to Raleon. I really appreciate your time. The Embedded Quest looks great. I wish you the best of luck at ETH Barcelona, which is 2 weeks from now, I guess. And with that, I'll let you step down, and I'm going to do some internal admin and giveaway stuff. So thanks a lot, Nathan.
Yeah, thanks, all.
All right, everyone. I will now share my screen just so that you can see the big one, if you will. And what I'll do now, I just remind you, so we saw a big list of, that was Embedded Quest, and he kind of sampled our beginner's voyage. I just remind you, go take the beginner's voyage, go do the values and voting voyage. We're going to try and launch more voyages so that they're all live. Those will be their kind of evergreen content to show kind of loyalty and activity within Clipper, and hopefully rewards in the future. And of course, we have the adventure coming up soon. Please fill out the community poll just to give a bigger date on the adventure. It's going to be probably mid-August. And what I'm going to do now is head over to hashtag AMA. I'll put that link in main deck. Hashtag AMA for giveaways to say thank you to Nathan. And I'm going to do just a couple of giveaways. And then we'll say goodbye. So we're going to do, you don't need to spam the channel. I'll put it up, and all you need to do is you click the emoji reaction. You'll give yourself a chance to win some Matic. So G-Create, that's the giveaway bot. We'll do it for 30 seconds. We will do 3 winners, and we will do 10 Matic each starting now, and we'll do this twice. So 22 seconds left. There's 330 people in the audience. Let's get a bunch of entries, and there's going to be 3 winners. So 15 seconds left. Go ahead and get yourself a Matic, and then I will say goodbye, and we'll go about our day. And if you have questions for Raleon, Raleon.io, head to their Twitter. I'll post links in main deck. 1 second left, and our winner is, let's find out. Tisun, Mortez, and Melon, congratulations. It's so nice to see people that aren't usually the winners. Message me your wallets. I'm going to end this channel. And you know what? I think this is probably not great recording for YouTube, but we will do one more giveaway. But we're going to do it off recording. So I'm going to say goodbye to our YouTube audience. Thanks so much for being here. I'm going to hit stop recording now.